Hey everybody, Stephen Human here with Superhuman Customs, and today we have something special. I just got the Ben Affleck Batman from the Flash movie. They're just barely hitting stores. In some place they haven't even come out yet. I was lucky enough to score this guy today, and so we are going to customize him. He's got lots of fun details all throughout. Now, obviously, I haven't seen the movie because no one has seen the movie at this point. It hasn't come out yet. So what we're going to do is I'm not going to worry about making this guy screen accurate. I'm just going to make him cool. He's got armor up here. We're going to put some gunmetal gray on that. We're just going to play around and make this guy look original and awesome. So without further ado, let's dive in to the new Batman from the Flash. First thing we're gonna do is I don't necessarily care for cloth capes. Now, like NECA has done some really nice ones that drape really well. This is not one of those. It just kind of bunches up, and there are some ways you can kind of get it to look cool, but most of the time not. So I'm just gonna remove it, and I'm just gonna try yanking it off and seeing if it comes off, and it does super easily. So there we go. Now, I got a couple different capes I can use that are plastic. So I have this one. This came from some armored Batmans for some figures I'm customizing in the coming weeks, and I yanked them off. So I have two of these actually. And then this one, which is from a Thor. And so what I like about these is that this one kind of just drapes down, and I need to cut it obviously, but it's a pretty standard like drapey cape. This one on the other hand, I could fit underneath here, and it is a little bit more, I don't know, just dynamic. So I think I'm gonna go with this one just to make it look that much cooler. We made our choice. Let's spray paint. While the cape is drying, let's go ahead and go through. I'm gonna add some gunmetal gray to this armor area here. Now, there's some really interesting things about this figure. First of all, there's no paint apps to speak of other than the belt, which I'm fine with. But you can tell the eyes, it's very strange. Like the eyes are gray, just like the cowl, but they kind of glisten a little bit, I guess. It's very weird. And so I think I'm gonna go through and paint that white once the time comes. So we will see. But I noticed that it was just strange. I was like, hey, his eyes are gray, and maybe that's how they are in the movie. I have no idea, but that's not how I want my Batman to look. So we'll go through and paint those as well. I'm just going through right now with this gunmetal gray, hitting these areas. And I still want this to be dark. I just want it to come through a little bit more of a contrast between that and everything else. I'm going to leave the bat symbol black. Just getting a little bit of paint each time. The first one I did over here, I grabbed too much and it caused me some problems. So I'm just getting a little bit and just going over it nice and slow. Right now I'm just going through and getting these little details on the side. There's kind of like this almost lattice work here with the armor. I'm just going to go through and hit these areas and leave the little belts coming through just so that I can have more details to stand out. I'm going to do the same thing to a lot of these little details around here. Like anything that looks like armor, I'm going to do the gunmetal gray. So like here on the shoulders, I'm going to hit those. Here on the gauntlets here, I'm going to do the same. Because this is great because it's lightening it up a little bit, you know, and adding some sheen, some metal to it. But if it gets a little bit too light, or if the contrast is more than what I want, then I can go through with a wash over the top of it and dirty it up. But for right now, this is looking really, really nice. And just adding the contrast that I think this guy has really been missing from the moment he was announced. And maybe, I'm sure on the movie there'll be a lot of details that we're not seeing here, but again, I don't care if this is movie accurate or not. I just want it to look cool. And for me, that is happening now. This is all really basic stuff. I'm just going through right now and just hitting all of these other areas. So the ones on the legs, and I'm gonna go through in here in these detail areas too. And this gunmetal gray is looking so good with the black. It's really coming out really nicely. Not too light like the old silver I would use. It's just really accenting quite beautifully. So that's what we want. It's looking great. And you know what? There are a lot of details on this guy. Just tons of little details that you can fill in with silver or gunmetal gray or just straight up gray, however you want this guy to look. I'm really enjoying the sheen to everything and just how he is turning out with all these little bits and pieces. You can see here that the cape in all of its black glory does not match the cowl, which is a lighter gray. And for me, any good Batman's cape has to match his cowl. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through with this craft gray and do a coat over the top. And I'm going to do it kind of light so that some of the black can still kind of come through on the cape. But as you can see, it matches his cowl much, much better than this black does. And for me, that's more important. And as I spread around the paint, it'll give the cape a little bit of a leather look, which is definitely what we want. Because I don't like, I mean, that was my only problem with the cape from like the Dark Knight movies, is that it really did look very fabricy, and that's fine because they were going for a very scientific, like memory cloth look. But I personally like the capes that look a little bit thicker and a little bit more leather-like, a little bit more like bat wings. That is what I am after. While the cape is drying, our next thing is we're going to go through and we're going to hit these eyes. The eyes are really little. So I'm just going to get a tiny little bit of paint on there and see if I can get in and just do a streak of white in here and see if we can do it. I'm not sure if it's going to work out. It's a really small area, but I will see if I can do it. That one looks okay. Let's try it on this one. I'm actually going to, remember, don't be afraid to play to your strengths. And for me, my right hand is my strength. And so I am going to get in here by holding him upside down. I'm not sure how that's looking, but I might have to go through and chip it away a little bit and redo it, but at least now I'm getting a feel for it. When it comes to adding details, don't be afraid to just go in and hit some stuff. So I just got some black because I was going to fix where I kind of screwed up the sign right here. And I'm going and hitting some of these areas just to make them stand out a little bit against everything else. I'm thinking I'm going to do a wash no matter what, just to make it so that everything kind of stands out. But this way I can go through and I can fix up some of these little areas where I screwed up and just add a little bit extra to some places. And I'm going to add a little bit of gold to the belt just to make it stand out a little bit. Again, to add just some shininess a little bit. Really, I'm doing more of a dry brush more than anything to just make some things stand out a little bit. Because the belt is very muted, which in real life, I'm sure that's what Batman would have if he was a real guy. He wouldn't have a bright yellow belt. But from an aesthetic standpoint, having it stand out a little bit more is nice. All right, we're just gonna do some wash over him. Just gonna do it in a lot of areas, just kind of go over, accent some of these things, darken it up a little bit. Here on the cowl. Actually, I'm gonna put a little bit on his face. It always showed the Ben Affleck Batman with 5 o'clock shadow. So let's give him a little bit. And we're just going over some of these areas, accenting some of the details, making him look like Batman. I mean, not that he doesn't already look like Batman, but just that he looks like a creature of the night. All right, I'm having second thoughts about the cape. This one I'm liking because of the texture of it, because it feels very real. The other one feels very cartoony. And so I'm thinking I'm gonna go with this one, even though it doesn't have like the dynamic, swoosh to it, but it's too long. So I'm going to just trim it down a little bit and then we'll see what we go with. But I really do feel like this one just looks more in character, where the other one makes the figure look like a comic book character as opposed to a movie character. So I'm thinking, in my opinion, that's the way I should go with it. All right, so here's with this cape. Again, looks very movie inspired. And then with this one, It's got a much cooler swish to it, but again, it just makes it look like a cartoon character, and I don't think I want that. So I think I'm gonna go with this bad boy and make him look like he's a movie figure. Last time I did this with a cape, I used resin. I'm just gonna go, I still have plenty of super glue here. I'm just gonna super glue it on. And we'll start here just with the back and move Batman into place. And I want these to come up here. So I'm going to do it one part at a time. I'm going to have it so that this is glued on first, and then we'll do these areas here. And then I think he's going to be done, unless we want to add some mud or something in here. So I guess the last question is, do we want to put pupils in his eyes to make him look more movie accurate? I think maybe we do. Moment of truth. The least fun thing to do on any action figure is try and put an eyeball on it. Let's see if I can do it. Now let's see if I can fix this other eye. Up close it's not great, but from far away it looks pretty good. Definitely looks more like a real person with that, but I'm gonna have to, especially with that left eye, I'm gonna need to play around a little bit, but I think it's smarter that we did this. We gave him pupils. Finishing touch, some mud textures. I'm not gonna go too crazy here. I'm just gonna put it around his feet a little bit. I'm gonna do both the lighter and the darker, and just muddy him up a little bit. Batman has been walking through some dirty places, as he would. Just around here on the feet, nothing more. Not gonna go up onto the legs at all. Here's the finished product, Ben Affleck Batman. I think it turned out pretty great. The eyes weren't perfect, but from a toy perspective, when you're regularly looking on, they look really good. If you zoom in, they're not quite perfect. I try to scrape them off, but that's how it goes sometimes. Perfection is not something that most of us are gonna find. Now, if you're like me, where, you know, I like doing it this way, I'm not really into airbrushing, and so, you know, if you're comparing yourself to what other people can do, don't, because there's always gonna be people who are way better than you and will make your stuff look like crap. If you enjoy this the way I do, just do it and have fun. And if you want to show your pictures, feel free. I want to see them. I know that sometimes they can be scary. I've seen, you know, I've experienced when you post something and have people just tear it to shreds and you end up feeling like crap. But don't worry about it. Share it with me. Share it with here with the community. We're all here to just kind of help each other. And I hope that you guys have as much fun doing this as I do. I appreciate you guys watching. I'm really happy with how this Batman turned out. I'm excited to get the Keaton Batman. We'll play around with that one a little bit. I'm Stephen Human with Superhuman Customs. Check out my books at stephenhuman.com, and I'll see you guys next week.